back to the Common Application. Let's complete our application to the University of Portland. Before I log into my Common App account, I want to make a note that I have prepared, just like I do every time I sit down to complete an application, and that includes this time making sure that I know what the prompts are for the University of Portland's short answer questions, and I've written out my responses and am ready to just copy and paste those when the time comes to do that in the application. So, since I'm prepared, let's go ahead and log in to get started. The first page that I'll come to when I log in is my dashboard, and that has a list of all of the colleges and universities that I plan to apply to using the Common Application, and information about where I'm at in the application process with them. So you can see that many of them I'm still in progress, but for some I have already submitted that application. I'll scroll down to the University of Portland. The application is in progress, and if I click Show More Details, it shows me exactly what I still need to do. And what I have completed here, I can see with this green check mark or the word complete, and it's the Common Application. So that was the big section that had all of the questions for which the answers are going to be sent out to all of the colleges. And then each college has a supplemental section with their own questions. And that's the first section here that I want to click on to take me to the University of Portland's questions section. Now this looks fairly familiar. On the left-hand side are menu headers to show what I still need to work on, and then I have these questions to answer. Now the questions on this page are being asked by the University of Portland, and my responses are being sent only to the University of Portland. If you're working on multiple supplements, you might see that some questions look familiar or even identical to questions on other supplements. That's okay. You'll need to complete them again because, as I mentioned, the questions that you're answering in the supplement are only for the institution that is highlighted in blue over here, and so we need to answer the questions on each supplement separately. So let's go ahead and get started. Just like before, there are going to be some questions that have a red asterisk or star that indicates that this is a required question. If that isn't there, the question is optional, and I can choose whether or not I want to answer it. In this case, I am required to tell them when I plan to start. As you know, I'm expecting to graduate in the spring of 2021, and therefore will start college in the fall of 2021. Admission plans, here there's only one option, and that is rolling admission. That means I'm going to submit my application, they'll review it, and they'll get an answer back to me, and I'll have until the spring to make a final decision about where I'll attend school. Now they're asking a question about some specific fee waivers, so application fee waivers that I might be able to use. And if the university has invited me to apply without an application fee, I would click that here. Otherwise, I would choose I do not have a fee waiver. I do intend to pursue need-based aid. That means I'm planning to submit either the FAFSA or the ORSA, and I will click Continue. The section about academics is asking what do I want to study when I get to the University of Portland, and this is a required question, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to choose what I'm most interested in. And I can make the choice to say that I am undecided. So if I don't yet know what I'm interested in studying, I can choose undecided, and that will be just fine. If you do know what you'd like to study, you can choose something there. Okay, so now they're wondering if there are any pre-professional fields that interest me. And for me, the answer is no, I'm not interested in any of these, so I will choose none. If you're interested in some, you'll want to choose that. That's going to help them to make sure that you get the appropriate advising once you are on campus. And my planned career goal, I am required to answer this, so I do need to have some idea of what I'd like to do in the future. But I can say, not sure, interested in helping people, maybe social work. But I really should use complete sentences here. So I'm going to go back and fix that. It's important to use appropriate grammar, punctuation, and capitalization. Now they're asking me about the honors program and whether or not that's something that I'm interested in applying to. And I've read about that and have decided that I'm not interested, and so I'm going to say no. You can choose yes, or you can choose to not answer this question at all. Any of those are perfectly valid options. Okay, the University of Portland is test optional, and so this question is about whether or not I would like them to review my SAT or ACT scores. We've talked about this before when we were completing the larger common application and had already decided that no, we don't want to do that. But if the answer is yes, you'll want to make sure that you provide your test scores, click yes, and continue. Then we get to the activities section. Now, it is the case that we have already told them what activities we've participated in high school or before arriving at the university. Now they're interested in knowing of the activities available on their campus, which ones are of interest to us that we think we might want to participate in. We can choose up to 5, and we start by selecting from this drop-down menu the first one that we're interested in, and I think for me that's going to be study abroad. The opportunity to study in another country while I'm in college sounds really exciting to me, but I'd like to add another, and I'm going to choose that I am interested in doing community service. Now again, I can choose up to 3 more of those if I like. Now this next section is I can submit a resume if I have one. I am not going to choose to do that, but you can if you like, and you'll want to do that by uploading either from your computer or from Google Drive a copy of your resume. And I'm going to choose not to do that because I think I have all of the information that would be on a resume in my activities section that I filled out in the common application. But if you have additional information on a resume that you would like the university to see, this is a really great time to upload that resume. So you can upload from your computer by clicking on this button, or Google Drive clicking on this button. Now we come to the first of the short answer responses for the University of Portland. And again, I have already written the response to this, and so I'm going to copy my response and paste it into this box here. And then I have the opportunity to provide some information about any online presence I have. So if I have a website, for example, that shows some of my talents or the creativity that I display, I could add that here. I don't have it, so I'm going to leave this blank, but if you have a website or a social media account that really shows your particular talents or creativity, go ahead and include that there and click continue. The contact section is all about your contact with the University of Portland, including how you learned about them. And they're asking you to provide up to 10 different ways that you've learned information about the university, and that you list those in the order of how much influence they had in your decision to apply. So for me, I learned about the University of Portland when the University of Portland visited my school, and they want to know when that happened, and it was during my junior year in the fall. And then I had another time that I learned about the school, and that was when I went and talked to an admissions representative. I can add up to 8 more contacts. The next question is asking about whether or not it's okay for the university to contact me through my cell phone, and that may be a phone call or text messaging. Oftentimes this would be an opportunity for them to send me reminders or information that might be of use to me, like letting me know that something is missing from my application, for example. I want them to be able to do that, so I'm going to say okay and give them my phone number. I don't have to say okay to that. If I don't, they'll probably send that kind of information through email or the mail. And I can click continue. Now they're interested in knowing about my family. We did already provide some information about our family in the larger common application section, this is about my family's relationship with the university. And so the first thing they want to know is, do I have any siblings who are also applying for admission this year? For me, the answer is no, but let's take a look at what happens if we click yes. Then a box pops up to ask me information about their relationship to me. Is it my brother or my sister? And then their name. And I could add up to 5 siblings who are also applying. For me, again, the answer is no, so I'll change the answer there and move on. Have I ever had any relatives who attended the University of Portland? If I were to say yes, it's going to ask me what kind of relative that is, and then if I click yes again, I will have additional information that they'll want to know about that person, their name, and how many degrees they received from the college. Again, I don't have that, so I'm going to say no. But you'll choose the answer that's correct for you. And then finally, the same thing for any relatives who've ever worked for the university. If I said yes, a box would pop up. They would ask me who it is, and I would answer the questions about them. For me, the answer is no, and I'll click continue. And now I come to a required writing supplement. And they're asking, why am I applying specifically to the University of Portland? And so again, I've already written that response. I'm going to come over here, copy my answer, and paste it into this box and move on. Okay, this next question is about any arrest record that we might have, and we need to answer this question honestly. Answering yes to a question about whether or not we've ever been arrested, charged, or convicted of a crime doesn't mean that we can't be admitted to the University of Portland. However, answering no when the truthful answer is yes is a reason for us not to be admitted to the college. So we want to make sure that we're answering this truthfully. If the answer is yes, you'll click that and a box will come up where you'll provide an explanation of what happened. And in a perfect world, you'd also give some information about what you learned from that experience. For me, the answer is no, and so I'm going to go ahead and click no, but if the answer for you is yes, again, be sure to answer that question, like all questions, honestly. And we'll continue and we come to this section called Recommenders and FERPA. Now this is an interesting page on the supplements. So in the Common Application, we have a number of supplements, one for each of the colleges we're working on, and this section is one that once we begin this section on any of the supplements, that information gets pulled into each of the other supplements. So, for example, I have already done the FERPA release authorization because I've already done another supplement. But I want to talk about what that is in case this is the first time that you're seeing it. FERPA stands for the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and this section is really about giving you an opportunity to give permission to share information from your high school or any other colleges that you've already attended with the colleges and universities that you are applying to. So it just gives that permission to your previous institutions to send it on in support of your application. When you see this for the first time, you're going to be able to review the authorization, and it's very important that we read through all of these instructions and understand them and get some help in understanding them if we don't yet understand them before we say, yes, I've read these and am ready to move on. Note that number 2 is particularly important to pay attention to. You're going to be asked in just a moment if you are interested in waiving your right to review letters of recommendation. That means people are going to write letters of recommendation for you. Do you want to be able to say, nope, don't ever need to see those, or actually I'd like to have the opportunity to see them sometime maybe in the future? And number 2 gives you some advice about how to make that decision. Once you've read and understand all of these instructions, you can click this box and press continue. And then you'll be brought to a page that allows you to acknowledge that you understand every high school or college you've ever attended is going to have permission now to send any of the records that are necessary over to the colleges that you're applying for, and that the colleges can be in touch with those schools in order to get that information. Then you'll move on to answer this question about the recommendation letters that I just mentioned, and then you'll have the opportunity to say that you understand that once you've submitted an application or somebody has written a letter of recommendation on your behalf, you can't change your mind about what you want to do with those recommendation letters. So you'll notice that there was a note at the top of mine that I'm no longer allowed to change my mind about this, and that's because I've already submitted an application. So you want to make sure that you are choosing what you mean the first time you do it. And then you'll sign, date, and say okay. Also on this page is all the information about the recommendation letters. In this case, again, we start the process of inviting people to write letters of recommendation for us in the first supplement that we complete. And once we've done that, their information gets pulled into each further supplement that we work on. That's most obvious with the counselor. The very first supplement I worked on, I entered my counselor's information. I provided his name and his email address, and that shows up in every supplement after. Then we have teacher recommendations. At the University of Portland, I'm required to submit 1 teacher recommendation, and I can submit up to 2. So I have already entered some teachers that I am interested in writing a letter of recommendation for me, and I can invite one of those teachers to write a recommendation for the University of Portland as well. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose this teacher and assign him to write for the University of Portland as well. That means he writes 1 letter and it gets sent out to all of the different colleges that I've assigned for that. Again, I can invite another teacher. This is because I'm allowed to have up to 2, so I can either invite or assign Ms. Smith to write that letter as well, or I can invite another teacher and I would provide their email address, the subject that they teach me, and their first and last name, and whether or not I want that application or that letter of recommendation to go for the University of Portland. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave the 1 application, the 1 evaluation there, and move on to the next one. The University of Portland allows me to have somebody other than a teacher of an academic subject write my letter of recommendation. It is not required. It is optional. If I had somebody like that, I could invite the recommender. It looks just like the teacher recommendation, except this time they also want to know what is my relationship to that person. And then I would add them and they would get notification that they have been assigned to write a letter for the University of Portland. I'm not going to choose to do that, so I'm going to click out of here. And then there's also the option to invite an advisor. An advisor doesn't send anything to colleges for me. Instead, that's somebody who I'm giving permission to see my application so that they can provide me with some feedback about it if they have any. That button brings up a list of just their email address and their name, and I would do that and they would again get an email letting them know that they have permission to see that. Okay, so I am going to click continue and we're on to the application submission. So we're almost done. And here we have 3 more steps before we can submit. One of them is to review the application, one is to pay the application fee if there is one, and the third is to actually click submit on the application. So let's go through those steps. So the first thing is it's going to pull up a PDF of my application. So this is exactly what my application looks like. This is a fairly small screen. So if I want to see it larger, I can click this review PDF button and it will pull up an actual PDF of the application. And then what I'm going to do is make sure that I read through absolutely everything to make sure that it is all correct, that there are no errors, that it looks exactly the way that I want it to look. If I do find something that's out of place, I can click out of here and then go back and change that within my application and then come back to look at it again. Once I am confident that it is exactly the way that I want it to be, I will click that I have reviewed it and I am ready to go. So I click submit. This payment section, I have indicated earlier that I'm planning to request a fee waiver. so I don't need to make a payment. But if you are not requesting a fee waiver, you will have an extra button here that will take you to a third-party website where you will provide your payment using a credit card, and then you'll come back to this page to do the final step. And that is to affirm several statements and press submit. So there are a number of statements here that it's important that I read, understand, and acknowledge that I agree with them. So I'm going to read, understand, and acknowledge I agree with them for each of these sections. And once I have done that, I am going to sign my legal name, date the application, and click submit. And once I do that, I've applied to the University of Portland, and so have you. Congratulations.